So for new business, we wanted to, right on cue, there she is. Okay, we now have a full complement of committee members. Okay, so to start out, we wanted to meet with Action Ambulance and review call volume and response time data.
Okay, Tableau, right, so we've got the links all updated, we've got the data. Evan's been able to review the stuff from April.
Do you want this?
Previous as well.
Do you want this one?
Yeah. So we just did from January 1st of 2025 to the end of April of 2025.
This is a combination of
So it's a
all
combination
of them.
of Action and our had the A1
Yep.
and the mutual aid that came in.
Okay, so anything, trends or anything that you want to talk about, or?
So the biggest trend difference we're continuing to see is more responses into Amherst, right? So that volume is remaining consistent and different. We're still seeing motor vehicle accidents, but not at the level of previous years, right? On a year-to-date type of thing, so those
Can't be because
numbers.
people are driving more safely.
It's because of the construction, actually.
Because of the construction,
Yeah.
everyone's
Slows
much
everybody
slower
down.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So we're also seeing a lot of responses to a lot of MVCs, but they're being canceled and moved a lot as well. So it's definitely lower velocity type of incidents that are happening within the town. So overall volume is up, and mostly contributing that to the Amherst stuff that's going on inside.
Which should be quieting down now for the summer, but, I mean, we're still seeing a very large call volume. The senior housing, the, Greenleaves area.
It's consistent.
Yeah, the
The hotel,
Lodge.
yeah.
Craig's Doors.
Craig's Doors, a lot of stuff going on down there in the homeless areas and stuff still too. So, I mean, sometimes they're two a day there. So that's typically what we're seeing. In terms of response times, they're staying pretty consistent. They're a little bit elevated from the truck being north, but I don't think that it's something that's significant for us to say, hey, this is a problem at this point in time. So the trucks seem to be moving the way that they need to be moving and getting out the door, which is the important thing.
We've actually seen improved response time, actually, because of the North Hadley, because we're eliminating
Right.
having to try and get down Route 9. They have a straight shot over, so the high volume that we're talking about with Greenleaves and everything, it's actually easier to go Stockbridge to,
Stockbridge, and then
Yeah.
they shoot down?
correct.
Which is going to
So-
keep the average number consistent,
Okay.
right?
We've had a few calls over the 10 minutes, but we reviewed them all, and majority of them just been dispatching errors. So not anything having to do with not getting there in a timely manner or getting on the road quick, it was just dispatching numbers.
Yep.
So,
Okay, so, just in terms of that, I just want to go back to the Amherst. You're mentioning Amherst. So, Mike, this is a direct result of us being moved up on the run cart?
This is for finally having communication with the chief and actually realizing that we need to have an ambulance there quickly. ALS level, they still are requiring that for some reason, which is fine. If our ambulance is available, it goes. So, yes, and same thing for them coming to us.
Okay, so that's a good thing, right?
It's a great thing because now we're hitting, calls at the university that are in Hadley.
Yes, yes.
Ours in the first place.
Yeah.
I don't know if all the committee members know how long this has been in the works for. You might want to just, I don't know if they all know or not.
Yeah, it's years.
2013.
Yeah,
Yeah,
long time coming to finally
we
get to this
started.
point.
yeah, basically
Yeah.
since we started the contract with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just been, it has been that battle, a lot of frustration along the way. That's for sure. To say the least, frustrations.
And so any questions that committee members have about call volume or response times? You said there's some over 10 minutes that need to be reviewed, or you are reviewing?
No, we did review them. It was just dispatching, so the clock numbers
Got it.
for action or for ours, it was just not input correctly. So we haven't found anything that was, the only one that was over that was justified was because it was on the top of Skinner Mountain, which takes time to get to the top of that. So,
So having,
unless Dwight's driving, then we get there right on
so
time.
having action ALS up in North Hadley hasn't been a problem?
No, in my opinion, I personally, well, I mean, we have it that they're supposed to check in with us during the day. So, that's something we can review because technically, they can be down here during the day. However, like I said, with this, we have to go Bucky Hill half the time, so they're actually a more direct shot right down 116 to eliminate a lot of the traffic right now. Again, overnight to have a berth up at North Station, thank God there was an ambulance there. So again, we're always gonna have the issue with the Hockenham area, but the amount of, the population there, I mean, is, again, you also have to remember that we have an not ALS, we have first response engine set up now.
It's
They
a
can act-
VLS engine. It's an actual. It's like having an ambulance without the cot.
Yeah.
And so we've got all the meds that the BLS ambulance would have, all the gear the BLS ambulance would have. So they can pretty much start to care more so than they were at the first responder level.
So that truck is going to all these calls as well. Or, I mean, a lot of times if it's a motor vehicle accident and if Evan and I are working, to save the time, Evan and I are usually jumping in the ambulance because it's usually, unless they say a single car accident, sometimes there's a chance you're gonna have to have two because you can't stick two into one from different vehicles. So that's been fine as well.
Yep. The other option we could have done, Molly, is we could have put Tableau up on the screen, and we can show the committee members that. The link is still working, so it's all updated, so everyone can get in there and play with that. But we can, if you want us to do that at each meeting, we can do that as well, so people can see the interactive nature of it. And
Yeah, I think it'd be good for people to see the level of data that you have.
yeah,
Because you can drill down and if any questions come up. The only thing I'd be sensitive to, obviously, especially if the meeting's being recorded, is obviously we don't want any addresses or, that sort of information.
Yep.
Is not for public discussion.
no, it's averages. Well, you've seen
But
it,
I've seen Tableau,
counts
so
and
I
things
don't-
like that. So
That shouldn't be a problem.
yep,
We can send that link out to the group anyways,
Yeah,
can't
and
we?
it'll work.
We have.
Yeah.
So we can, if anybody hasn't seen it yet, we can send it again.
Yeah, and that link, it's live, so it's not like once you have it, you
You
just
have
need
it.
to, and you'll pick up whatever their most recent information is.
I don't think I got it on my email because I'm not on town email anymore.
So we'll send it to your JC Avion.
Yeah, I think that's the only one we've used for this committee.
Okay.
Okay. But if not, either way, can I get it too? Okay, so nothing else on, and I guess just from a call volume standpoint, so like Evan said, this is for the first 4 months of this year, but from a contract standpoint, we're coming up on, the last month of this year's contract, and I know there's always the lag, but kind of generally, where do you think you're gonna wind up in terms of activity?
Volume-wise,
Yeah, I
can.
know, but billing is different.
Yeah,
from
billing's
volume.
different. So volume-wise, I'll defer to. Mike on
the
that.
trend's going to remain the way that it's going. I don't see that it decreasing unless there's a dramatic change in mutual aid policy.
Yeah,
Right.
so you're expecting to be up over 2024.
Yeah, and I think that Rob can talk to
Yeah.
the financial numbers that are good, that's showing the benefit coming back, where essentially the full rebate's going to be
Yeah.
in place now, which is good news.
Which we would
So I'll-
evaluate in 3 months after end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, but
Correct.
but you can talk about trending now.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of data on not only the rebate amount, but just on the transport volume right now, at least through the contract year through the end of April. For Med One, we're at just under 781 transports is the data that I was provided with. We're trending towards the full rebate again. And I know this is an important, or something that we've highlighted in the past. We're still projecting to be around a 75% collection rate on what we bill in town. So that's what really drives the rebate amount to be what it is, that full rebate coming back to the town.
What was the percent?
75%.
The other comment, staffing is stabilized. We have the same people in the system now,
Yeah.
which is nice. So we're happy with the progress that's been made since December. I know that we had a hiccup Saturday night. We had a person with a family emergency that we had to make a move. We didn't get the communication to either the deputy or the chief right away, so we apologize for that. But all in all, staffing is stabilized across the board. So.
Well, has everyone met Dave at this point? Okay. So that's probably a good segue.
He's very nice, I was talking to him.
Dave, operations manager. I've been working at Wilmington for a couple of years, and I took over this area in January. So staffing was kind of a mess, and all over the place when I started. But
Just this June?
It's stabilized now.
June 1st
For what?
to start.
I've been with Action for going on 4 years,
Oh.
working at Wilmington. I just moved out to this area to take over this one
Okay.
in January.
Oh, January.
Yeah.
Okay, you said June.
Sorry.
I'm going, wow. You're doing
It's
better.
Brandon.
One day.
It's been a long day.
Yes. And just sticking with the collection again, maybe just for some information, 'cause again, I think we've been doing this for a while, but can you just talk about some of the variables that come into play with collection? Like if somebody says, well, why wouldn't you get 100%? Right? So can you just talk about the different things you have to worry about?
You want me to start? Or you?
Yep, go ahead.
So unfortunately, medical billing is not like billing for products. You know, if you buy if you manufacture a widget, you expect to get $1 for the widget. In the medical world, you may charge $1 for the widget, but you might only get paid 25 cents in the end for the widget, right? So everything is there's a lot of different contracts with different insurance companies. We have some insurance companies that want to reprice claims at the same time. So if you send them a bill for $1,000, they might send you $250 payment and send a note to the patient saying, oh, by the way, we renegotiated this on your behalf. You don't owe the provider any more money. Medicare and Medicaid are rate controlled. We have no control over any of those rates. Massachusetts is lagging behind the rest of the New England states about getting the Medicaid rate closer to Medicare. New Hampshire, Maine have all done something to create some level of parity there. So we spend a tremendous amount of time and effort just on collections alone, which is very frustrating, very time consuming, and very costly for us. So unfortunately, we can provide a report in terms of what the total dollars are looking like, but there's a lot of times we can't predict what a year is going to look like depending upon if the payer mix changes, right? Typically in most of the systems, 70+% of the patients are on some type of, now it's actually going higher, 75+ are on some type of government payer program, whether it's Obamacare plan, Medicaid, or Medicare in some way, shape, or form. Medicare users are by far the largest users of EMS systems, so you know that that's a large percentage of people that are in that ratepayer type of situation. We continue to see costs skyrocket. For us, it's just costing us under $1 million a year for an ALS truck, so it's a big number. And so we continue to battle that. The insurance companies continue to change their tactics as well, so we have to change our tactics at points in time. Sometimes we have to, get the patient on the phone with the insurance company and us to say, hey, we process this claim, it's part of my policy, because the insurers will try to hold off. Aetna, United Healthcare, Cigna are by far the biggest offenders from our perspective. So it's a frustrating environment to work in. So some states have done some things to pass legislation, and Massachusetts is still behind to force them to pay us directly, but we're still lagging behind. There are a number of things going on legislatively in Massachusetts that are making their way through the State House to look at these particular issues, but it's going to take this full legislative season to get through it, I think. I don't know if the Chiefs have got a lot of stuff playing out. There's a lot of stuff going on relative to doing a study of EMS and what's right, what's wrong, what needs to be fixed. Rates as well. They're talking about taking crossover payments off the table, which are payments that essentially cover the Medicare deductible if people are dual eligible, Medicare and Medicaid. So the governor has taken that off the table, taken it away from us. The House and the Senate are trying to get it back in. right now. So still some constant battles and challenges administratively behind the scenes that are going on. So the various associations work with obviously the legislative delegations to try to get some of this stuff fixed, but long term the system's going to need a whole scale fix and help legislatively, I
And
think.
what I'm seeing in the orthopedic office I work is that I would say 9 times out of 10, the patients have a secondary insurance, and it's just not Medicare. Medicaid's a totally different story because some patients just rely only on Medicaid. But most of your Medicares, even though they have A and B, they will carry a secondary, and we are able to bill them when Medicare B or whatever doesn't kick in. So
Yes.
there is that benefit too to have that secondary insurance.
Yes, and remember, ambulance Medicare only pays 80% of the cost, whether it's emergent or non-emergent. So the subscriber has to technically pay the remaining 20%. So you have to chase that. Federal legislation requires us to invoice those patients because it's designed as part of the Part B system, so the system's not abused. So as much as that's even frustrating too. So just
Do you
because
get to bill for the secondaries?
we can, if they have it, and we can
Yeah.
scrub for that, yes, and they usually cover the deductible or
Right.
the copay
Or
side
the
of it.
second, what's left?
Right,
Yeah.
they do, but some don't have it. Some
No.
don't have the coverage. Yeah.
No. But I would say most Medicare patients have that
A lot
secondary
do.
coverage.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yep. Was a lot of the Medicare now are dual eligible, so they're on Medicaid as well,
Mhm.
and like that crossover payment. So the Medicaid program pays that
Mhm.
difference.
That's good.
As we're starting to see more of that.
Do you wait for your Medicare payment to come in before you bill the secondary, or do you send that out at the same time?
The computer systems know.
Oh, okay.
They already know, so you can tell what they've gotten. So it goes off to the different vendors electronically, and then the computer matches, and then they process from there. It's very quick now, the way they do it.
That's good.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And another challenge too is the demographics, right? Because as the population is aging, more and more people are going to be on Medicare. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that age population is the one that's growing.
So would it behoove our people in government here to lobby to our senators and things about the benefits of the Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements?
Mhm.
So both at the state and the federal level.
Right.
So there's actually a national cost study going on. So they're year 2 into a 5-year study, and the numbers coming back in terms of what the cost numbers are compared to what the current rates are off significantly. That the federal government's really upside down in terms of what they're reimbursing. We've got a preview of that, but it's still soft data. It's not firm yet. So any legislative effort to increase funding on that front. The interesting part about it is ambulance spending nationwide. If you take all the dollars that are spent on healthcare nationwide, ambulance is only 0.28% of total spend. That's it. It's such a tiny number, but everyone's always battling us back for that, some part of that 0.28%. It's very small. So anything that can be done legislatively, we should be on board with. Yeah.
Can you give us kind of an overview with, you mentioned $1 million for the ALS ambulance.
Yes.
How
So
do-
that's what
How do you come to that?
Well, our labor cost that goes into that, the vehicle cost that we capitalize over 5 years, workers' comp, health insurance, all of the fringe benefits, everything like that goes into it. 401k expenses, admin, overhead, finance, human resources, everything all gets laid into that. It's a big number. It's skyrocketing.
And you're
over the
still
past-
profitable at that million, obviously. or
Yes.
It wouldn't be in business.
Right. So we have a lot of efficiencies behind the scene that we're able to spread those costs, overhead costs. Our contribution to overhead is easier with the scale that we have to carry it. Yep. And we're introducing more and more technology, so we're pretty soon introducing AI to do our billing for us. That will code the claims. So we're introducing new technologies. AI will ultimately start doing a lot of our quality assurance and QI stuff too. We'll be able to, we've already tested it, we know it works, we know it's very, very sound. We can also teach it to get even better at the way that it is right now. So within the next few months, we'll be able to code a claim within 5 minutes of closing out the call and bill it.
as opposed to how long without AI?
It could be, for us, it could be up to 7 days, depending upon where we are in our billing cycle. My billing office, as of this morning, started, they were done up and through the 28th of May, so that many days, but now it'll be literally within 5 minutes.
Well,
It's unbelievable, so,
Which allows us to dedicate our resources to focus on the collection aspect rather than the billing side.
yeah.
like
So
chasing
we should
the delinquent.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And some things like motor vehicle accidents, if you're first in, you're first to get paid. So we're typically first in, so then that helps our cash flow as well.
That's different too, because motor vehicle accidents, you have to bill the insurance, car insurance first.
Yes, and so we're able to track the claim down and then be first in on that pair.
Yeah.
So that's some of the strategies we use. But we have a whole staff to do that because it's our lifeblood.
So that makes a difference too, and you have to go through them first and see
Yeah,
if that's covered or not.
right.
Or who's at fault, I guess, you have to,
At fault, what the coverage is,
right.
right? And then if they hit the PIP max or not. And then you have to go back and bill Medicare or Medicaid if the PIP exhausts. Yeah.
So the 75% collection rate on your end, is that industry average, it's acceptable, low, high?
I'm laughing. So from what we've been told, I had a conversation recently with, I don't know what his title is, but one of the directors for the Mass Ambulance Association. And he mentioned that we're actually on the high end of collection percentages. Not specifically the 75%, but he said Action as a whole is at the high end of what most ambulance companies are able to collect. I think, and he agreed that he attributes that to the fact that we work our claims longer than other providers do. A lot of providers give a 90-day window and then they just do the write it off, we're done, we got to focus on new stuff. We'll work on stuff in-house for at least a year. If it's viable, meaning we're in contact with the patient, they're returning calls, they've arranged for a payment plan with us, whatever it might be, or they're working with us to actively engage their insurer, we'll work with them. We'll work the claim for 2 years or longer if they're actively engaging with us. Otherwise, at that 1 year mark, that's when we'll assess. All right, do we send this off to collections? We write it off after another year, so we keep it as a viable claim. If a third-party collection agency ends up collecting on that, 4 years down the road, we've written it off. But at that point, it's a pickup to us. But let them dial for those dollars. We'll focus on the stuff that we think will have a greater likelihood of collecting. So.
And then how about the pro EMS side of it, Mike? I know those are much smaller volume, but.
Yeah, it's just secondary calls.
Yep.
So we printed out what we got from our Pro EMS group.
Out
This
of, out of 66 calls, not, obviously, we didn't have, our transfers were only 55. So out of 66 calls, which goes into last year, 28 of those calls were billed to Medicare, 16 to Medicaid, and 22 to insurance. And that gives you kind of an idea of where the billing is.
Yeah, that mix, yeah.
You know.
This is 1 year.
So do you have an actual collection percentage on this one, or?
We do not. This is May of '24 through April of '25. So it's 1 year.
Six.
I'm sure we could extrapolate that.
Yeah,
I have,
it looks like total collections of 62,000 out of net charges of 211,783.
Yep.
Net, that's net of, well, actually, no, it'd be higher because you have payments and refunds in there.
Yeah.
So it'd be, whatever, 226 minus 109 minus 33,000 would be. I get the net charges. Yeah.
I'm sure you can read that. I'm glad you can read that because
It's also not mature too, because
Yeah.
you got March and April data here too.
It's
Right.
current data.
You know,
yeah.
and some of the Feb stuff is still gonna collect too.
yeah.
So it's still gotta mature a little bit.
So this would indicate that there were net charges of $84,000. 225 minus the 109 of contractual allowances.
You have some communities that their
So
government payments are at 85% and rising. And just Medicare and Medicaid, and like Spencer's one of them, as a matter of fact. And
So it's
government.
actually
So
in
you
line.
mean 84,000 out of the 211,
Out of the 225,
225.
out of the 225?
yeah. So gross 225, half of it.
That doesn't count for like that, once you have that number, then you go into contractual allowances and all that stuff that
Yep.
you subtract.
That brings it down.
all-
So, yeah, so the
Right.
225 is, full
Fake.
boat.
Full vote,
Then if, 110 of it, for argument's sake, is knocking it down to the Medicare rates.
right.
So that's, the net that you're ultimately allowed to bill, or the max you'd be able to collect would be about $84,000. So based off of that, you're about 73%, 74% on the collection rate. If we're reading the data correct.
Right.
So is this something that you guys are monitoring in-house, or should we just look at it in our committee all the time? Like how,
We monitor it in-house. We get this report every month.
yep,
So, and they're still working, obviously, they're still actively, unless you see an actual write-off on it,
mhm.
they're still actively attempting to get all these payments, assuming.
Yeah, it looks like your write-offs have been
And I get,
Like
from my desk, I
6,000.
get
not significant.
mail from some of the insurance companies where they're looking for more information, so that I send that off to Pro EMS, so it's always fluid,
Oh, it's gonna change every day,
yeah.
yeah.
And then it's a 4% they charge us for their billing. So we get a bill from them every month for 4% of whatever they bring in.
Okay, so this gets reduced by that charge. Anybody have any questions on that? Oh, good. Mike, the proposed changes to the Action EMS contract, did you want to skip that for now? And
Totally up to you.
uh,
We can just, it's up to you. It's limited highlighted stuff,
Yeah,
but we can just,
I'm fine with doing whatever you want to do.
I'll email it out to everybody. We're gonna do a quick review with everybody here in the room. And then I'll send it to everybody, you can review and digest it, but I thought it should be an open discussion a little bit first. 'Cause, some of it is new. The biggest part, I think, is we eliminated the performance section, which we'll go into, because we had that conversation with your insurance company and everybody else, but if you want
Yeah, I
to
think-
start off at the back, we're just gonna adjust.
We should probably, this resulted from a long conversation that we had with a bunch of people in town, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so everyone's on the same page as this. I don't think everyone was present for that though, right?
Right.
No,
That's
it
in-
wasn't
that's
the
in this-
full-
That's
yeah.
in this meeting.
It was your insurance company, our insurance
Experts,
expert.
yeah. Yeah,
And
so,
then, I was asked to put together so I did a bunch of research, threw together a draft.
and from our perspective, this is not a surprise to us.
Yeah.
Right, just so everyone knows.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
I think, good point, yeah,
Yeah.
for the.
For everybody here, yeah.
Yeah, so just, well, so why don't we just kind of say that out loud. So one of the conversations we were having was, in the past, periodically a concern is expressed about using an external third-party vendor relationship to provide the ambulance as opposed to doing it in-house, right? So one of the questions that came up is, as with any relationship with a vendor, you want to make sure the vendor you're working with is sound, right? So that there aren't any issues with something happening and you're kind of left in the lurch, so to speak. So we put our heads together with Action, subgroup, if you will, to try to figure out, okay, are there things that we can do to make sure the town is protected if we're going to enter into a multi-year contract with Action again? So, the chief obviously, and Sue is the risk manager for the town, and myself, Amy, Were you on that one? Somebody was there from John, that's like that. No? Okay. But anyway, the upshot of the whole thing was, what was suggested was rather than to try to get an insurance solution, right, just like you would for your house or your car, that in talking to Action's insurance agent, who's been handling the insurance for decades for you, I guess, it was suggested, and Sue agreed, as our risk manager, that it really didn't make sense to try to build in an insurance policy around this because the
Well,
cost was so,
A performance bond.
excuse me, performance bond, right.
Which was in there too, that was in the contract,
Right.
so.
Right, because it's, the cost of it is somewhat prohibitive. So,
And it doesn't do us a ton of good immediately.
yeah, so
Yeah.
even if something happened and we went to collect on the performance bond, you know, we kind of walked through all the steps of that and decided that, no, sounded good, but maybe it wasn't really the best solution. So the way that we left that meeting was that Mike and Mike were going to kind of put their heads together and see if there was some other, I'll call it a doors out. So if something were to happen unexpectedly with Action, you know, what benefit could immediately inure to the town to help mitigate any financial damage, as well as the immediacy of not having an ambulance service. So that's what they're talking about. So Mike has got some language in there
Yep. I
for
just-
discussion.
Did some research,
Yeah,
put
100%.
together, and did it as a draft so you guys can review it.
Yep,
We can put it through legal counsel to ensure that I hit all the right MGLs, and,
yep.
but obviously, it's a draft, it's for you to review first.
And it's what we talked about
But
as
it's
far
what
as
we-
the equipment
yes,
stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
That was recommended by the your insurance guy, and
Yep,
so.
yeah, he
it's
actually came
just-
up with a recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, and we're good with it. So we'll definitely review it and then follow up. So, again, there was no surprise.
Yep.
And we're in favor of it as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
So the only other parts, if we want to just start at the beginning on page, obviously we'll amend the dates, but,
Yeah.
so on page 1, I just requested, and I just updated the language because I know you guys do it anyways. You require annual Cory checks of your staff.
Yep.
So just providing us if there's any issues. Again, that's pretty simple. Page 2, basically, this references that Exhibit D. So if you don't have availability of an ALS ambulance and we call Northampton, I just added in there, we have interest from Amherst and Belchertown as well. So we'll put together their contracts until such time that we become ALS ourselves, where we could just cover that role. So that's actually all in place already. It's just we would be adding Belchertown, Amherst. I think those are the two that we're interested in following the same contract. Page 4, dispatching and communications has changed. Congratulations to our public safety dispatch. They've gone, we've taken over full EMD now in our dispatch center. And I don't think we've had any issues with it. It's been really good. I did talk with Megan and just asked her, and if it's okay with you, we would just like to keep you as an emergency. Something happens to our dispatch center, for some reason we can't, all of our dispatchers quit, whatever it is, that we would have the ability
has
to come
happened.
to you. Yeah.
I know a community that happened, they all walked out.
So we just wanted to see
True
if you would be willing, and she amended the language, that if we are unable to provide EMD, shall employ temporary EMD services with all the
Okay.
same info.
And Mike, sorry again, just might as well use it as an educational opportunity tonight. So the EMD service, I've had a couple of people in the community had heard about that, and they were like, well, what does that mean? What's happening now?
Yeah.
So can you just kind of quickly
Sure.
explain to people?
So it's been a couple-year process. So all of our dispatchers, our dispatch supervisor received grant funding to get, what's the name of was it Pro something? Anyways, dispatching cards put together. So basically, if you call 911 for a medical emergency, basically it has all the information on what the dispatcher's giving you for information. So somebody's having stroke-like conditions. They flip to that section of stroke, and the dispatcher, the 911 dispatcher, is on the phone with you, giving you all the information of what you should be doing. Sound correct?
Mhm.
If somebody's is in cardiac arrest and is not breathing, they'll give you CPR instructions.
Are you still using manual cords for that?
No, it's all computer
No.
based.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
They have the cards for backup,
yes.
Okay.
but it's all computer based.
Yeah, so it was a pretty extensive training. It's, part of the union contract that we had put in place, I think a year, at least, the previous contract. So they've all been trained up. The company has been out to make sure everybody's on board with it. And like I said, I think it's been going quite well with it. So that's diminishing the time even more now. So now there's no transfer of your call to our 911 dispatch center. It doesn't get transferred to Action now. It's our dispatcher. They pick up the phone and your emergency is being processed. So again, another way to,
And then use us as a backup. What I mean by backup is that if you have 2 calls simultaneously that can't be done downstairs, then send us the second call.
actually, we
That's-
can't do that.
Yeah.
That has to go to East Hampton as a backup PSAP. What it would be is if we can't man our dispatch. So
Well-
if something happened where we have to go through,
Because of the grant.
the grant, the way the grant's written, it has to go
Our
through
backup PSAP has to
our
get
backup
that.
PSAP.
Oh, so it's considered an overflow situation?
Yeah, yeah.
Because you're not even answering the call?
Correct,
Okay,
yep.
makes sense now.
Yep.
That is the law.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, yep. Some places will answer the call and then send it to us,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
knowing it's an overflow for them. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
good to know though.
Yep.
So you're not even gonna answer it? Okay,
Great.
good.
Next section is the garaging of the ambulance on page 8. So basically, it's been changed from center to North Hadley Fire Station or at the discretion of the fire chief. So if something changes where we need them to be here, we'll say, you're moving down here. So I know there was some questions about that, but we review the data all the time for response times. And again, we discussed it earlier. There was some concerns initially, but I'm not finding any of that. They are out the door quickly. They're meeting their response times, out of shoot times. And again, with the addition of our engine going out the door or our BLS ambulance going out the door, we're covering this end of town to get patient care going right away.
I think any problems that we've had, we would have had anyways because they were a situation of getting lost. And those only been 1 or 2 of those. So I think it's worked out really well.
Hardly blame.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, like the chief said, so like Memorial Day Parade, we had the Med 1 stage down here.
I saw, yeah.
So for any like big event that we do have or anything, we've actually had them stage
So like
here.
the Asparagus Festival.
Yeah.
I know you guys are on site for that, but
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Yep. And then like, Young Men's Club event, we have them stage here.
Body blowout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing obviously is just monitoring like you're saying, it's all about response times is what we've talked about. So to the extent the majority of the calls are in the Route 9 area, the worry was that if they're not at Central Station, they're responding from the north. It seems like it would logically be added time, but you're saying it's not.
No, and then if you look at it in reverse,
Mhm.
that section that's highly big-time residential population up in Shattuck Road, Cummins,
Yep.
if you imagine the time frame from here to get up there.
Sure.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, I think we've got it covered really well with either an ambulance or a BLS engine, that you're gonna be getting care super quick. So, and then backup again, like Evan said, if Action Med 1 is out and we have the staff, our A1 is next in line to go out the door. If we need an ALS intercept, we're calling for that. If it's during the week, then Evan and I are manning the fire truck. So there's really no, I don't have a concern on it. So, and I think it's working really well.
And Action, obviously, if your data starts to show anything different, you point it out, I'm
Yep.
assuming.
Yep.
On page 10, under backup service, just amended it so that it reflects, again, this will probably just have to be amended depending on what we do for timeframe of the contract. But basically, in an effort to cover it, I just put highest licensed and approved a level available throughout the duration of the contract. So the contractor is responsible for notifying Hadley Public Safety through the dispatch center if they're having an issue or a delay, so if something happens up at North Station and they can't get out the door, or if they can't meet the response time, they'll let us know, or a mutual aid partner. And then it references that subsection, section 1, subsection E for if for some reason they're not meeting the 10-minute requirements and it's flagrant, which we really haven't had that, so. Anyway, so that's what we have for that backup service. The performance bond goes away under section 12. And the big section on breach and remedy, so you can review that and let us know what you think. And that's pretty much it, unless I missed anything, which if anybody has any changes, just let me know if you have any concerns. The only other parts that we would need is usually, once we figure out what the contract final is, I'll request the updated insurance. Sue reviewed the insurance portion for us. She was comfortable with that. So just your insurance thing, all those other documents that we attach at the end, the non-collusion or whatever, I'll send you the list. Usually you do an updated example of the reimbursement, if that's changing, for whatever the number of years, and then just what we're doing for the contracted rate, which if that's changing, just gotta let us know. We haven't heard anything from you on that. So if that's remaining at the same amount, then we'll just keep it at the 180,000 over the whatever the life of the contract is.
Okay.
That's about it. How was your vacation? It was great. Good. Welcome back. And then you already talked about the status for the changeover dispatch, right? We covered that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Then for old business, we have the.
Molly, I'm gonna interrupt
oh,
you
sure,
one second.
go
New business, Hopkins did their graduation already, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Just wanna confirm that, because we gave out a $500 scholarship to Melissa Cabrera,
Yeah.
right? At the high school as part of our annual program for someone that beats the criteria for the Dr. Harry Portman Award. So free tuition to an EMT program and also a $500 cash offer. So that was all arranged and done and given out. So we're happy to do that.
Very nice.
Okay.
Very nice, thank you.
Yep. And I was at the graduation and I did hear that. So.
Good.
So thank you. I'm glad you pointed it out. 'Cause I forgot
I watched
to
it.
mention it. Yeah, you watched it.
I was there.
You graduated?
Beginning.
Again,
Good one, Chief.
honors this time.
Thanks, Chief.
They gave him a lawnmower.
Riding?
Yep.
Okay. Two of them, actually.
Anything else on any of the action items? Though?
New business?
And then the only other item we had tonight was the status of Hadley's BLS and ALS.
Yeah. Basically, we are in line with moving forward into our ALS license. Dave, do you want to report on where we're at? You're working on the application still. We have some small intercept agreements and things like that.
Crossing my T's and dotting my I's at this point. Finishing up some things like policies and procedures. We're finishing up the agreements, the mutual aid agreements. Just a small handful of things that need to get done, and I'm hoping that the application will be submitted by the 20th of this month.
Turnaround time on it?
Oh, it could be 3 months. It could be a month. It all depends on the state.
Yeah, so the goal was application in by July 1st, and then it can be anywhere up to another, it could take up to a year to get approval from Dr. Morse, because we have to make sure that everybody is certified and they're comfortable with who's riding the trucks. We have some seasoned folks like Dwight and Dave, for example, who very well may not need to ride for, they could probably get going right away. But we'll have some new folks that are coming on board that we'll see where they're at.
Dave, send the backup agreement to me, because we can do one with you too. To help check that out.
Mutual aid
Yep.
agreement? Okay.
Yeah, mutual aid
I
backup,
did-
yeah.
I don't know, I did include wording in our mutual aid agreements, seeing as how the chief has discretion over the action bus. There's wording in those mutual aid agreements where it talks about either our ambulance or our contracted ambulance being able to mutual aid with the other communities.
No, send it to me for action, just to do it with you.
Okay, okay.
That's how the state wants it. They want it to be two entities agreeing outside of,
Even though we're
Yes.
contracted with you already?
yep,
Okay,
it'll be much cleaner.
okay.
And you're gonna need them every year when you renew your license too. You have to show those backup agreements or mutual aid
Are your
agreements.
licenses yearly?
Yes.
So do you have updated agreements with Amherst and
I do not with the Amherst. I believe we have
Northampton? We have
Northampton.
Northampton's, yep.
So we should,
I got that.
we should officially do one with you guys though too. I have a template, I'll send it to you.
I
It's
think
not a
that's
big deal.
what Amherst was saying when he got back to me and said that things aren't copacetic with how they should be as far as mutual aid. I think he was talking about is the fact that they didn't have an updated agreement with them.
Action, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have to,
Do me a favor, just start an email thread
Okay.
and we'll get that moving.
With you and,
Amherst.
oh, okay.
Yeah, or if you wanna do it.
that's fine. I think because their mutual aid agreement that we got originally, it didn't have an expiration date on it. You know what I mean? So it just rolled over.
Most of them.
That's
So-
common.
And same with South Hadley, like District
Yeah.
1, they're just like, the first one's fine, like, we don't need to do it again. District 2 was the same. Northampton, they
Yeah.
request an annual, I think they ask us to redo it annually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can start a thread with
Okay.
on that.
Is
Yes.
sorry, go ahead.
No, those agreements typically don't, you can do evergreens. You cannot do a medical control affiliation with more than 2 years though. Those used to be evergreen agreements and DPH wants them every 2 years. So just keep that in mind or they'll kick it back. All right. But Dr. Moore should know that.
He wants us to,
1 year.
whatever we can do
Yeah.
to help us.
Okay.
He wants to move forward with
Yeah, he's a-
getting another ALS ambulance in town, or in the area.
Yep.
They're very supportive right now.
Is that the plan, Mike, is once the license comes, to start parting ways with these guys, or keeping them as working now until we're further along, or?
Yeah.
Got
We,
it.
we would be working with action on that, and our license requires like a 3-year lookout, so, year one, we're
8 hours.
ALS for 12 hours a day.
16 hours a day the
So,
second year
right.
and then 24 to 30.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be second calls for service or mutual aid. So again, I think it's fitting with the potential of, if we're looking at a 2-year contract with action with a 3rd-year option, then I think that's something we should be looking at. That way we're doing the phased-in approach again. It allows the town, we have some big questions coming up in the fall on funding, how we're funding the fire department and EMS. So we can get that on board. We are applying for the SAFER grant again this year, not that it's gonna change.
How many- how many
won't
years
turn
have
blue.
we done this?
So your,
But-
the phased-in approach ideally would be 2 more years of having them with us, and then possibly the 3rd if we're not ready as a department.
I think, we would be ready, but again, it's a discussion with the select board,
Right.
finance committee, and the
Fine,
town.
like financial wise,
Yeah,
but
the town needs to make the decision.
legal wise for these guys' license, it's a minimum of 2 years of
No,
overshadowing.
we'll have an ALS license in place, it's just the time framing. So after the 12 hours, it goes up, like, that can be amended. We could, after,
Oh, you can, but once you start, so the first year, you have to provide 8 hours of coverage every day to the ALS level. The second year, you have to provide
Minimum.
16 hours,
Yeah.
16 hours of ALS coverage every day. And once you start doing that, you can't go backwards. So if we decide early we want to do the 16 hours of coverage every day, we can't say, oh, no, we can't do this and go back to the 8 hours. we have to continue moving forward.
Gotcha, understood.
But it doesn't mean you can't have Action as your primary ambulance and our ALS is
Correct.
Right.
secondary, but it's still going out as ALS for those 16 hours a day.
Correct.
Yeah, if you default on your staffing on a consistent basis, they'll take the license.
Yeah, that's what I was, like, say, these guys all say, we just got a new job in Myrtle Beach, we're out. So we've signed this contract, you guys left, now what do? You know what I mean? Like, you're kind of holding all of the cards and
Yep.
know where to go. And I picked Myrtle Beach because it's kind of nice year round, so.
Yeah, they pay nothing though. It's the
It's
South.
nice down there this winter.
Was it nicer than Hadley? I don't know, it was pretty cold a couple of days here.
I'll tell you Wednesday.
You're not, are you?
Yeah, I'll be in Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, and I think, just so everybody's clear too, from, what has really transpired during the budget season is the fact that the cost, the actual additional staffing, et cetera, that would be required to do it fully in-house, right, without Action, is pretty significant. And then we still don't have a really good handle on the capital that's associated with that, because right now, Action really bears the cost of the ambulance itself, right? It's built into a capital plan that you have. And the payroll burden is all on Action. I'm just explaining. Is on Action, right? So it would be a shift to the town to take on that payroll burden. And then, we have a pension and all of that stuff that Action doesn't
Right.
have. So we're trying to get our heads wrapped around, forecasting it out, ultimately whether or not that is the best thing. So that's what Mike's referring to when he said it's kind of with the select board. And
Yeah, I watch the selectmen's meeting when I'm working basketball on Wednesday nights, so something
So
to
it's
do when you're
still-
sitting there in a
it's
chair.
still a
I just
goal-
want to make sure that, oh, I'm sorry.
It's still a goal of the town to move forward.
if the numbers work,
Well,
because.
yeah, but it's the goal.
I think that's unclear right now, I mean, that's the original goal that the chief set out on. For right now, we just want to make sure we have all of the facts before we go ahead and just do it, right?
It's
So-
not just his goal, I think,
Yeah.
when we first started this committee, and God knows I've been on a lot of ambulance committees,
You and I both.
well, I've been on it longer than you, but I started way back when I was on school committee, I was on an ambulance committee.
Oh, okay.
So, with Joe Fitzgibbons, so I mean, I've been at this a long time, and our goal was to always at least somehow become self-sufficient in our ambulance and what it be to move forward. And I think the last few years, we certainly tried, and I thought you were on board with that also, to tell you the truth, that was going to be our goal to get into be an ALS. And I was kind of disheartened that we hadn't had a meeting prior to town meeting to know exactly where we were standing. We haven't had a meeting since last October, and then all of a sudden we're at,
No, it's November 7th, but we didn't
Yeah.
have the numbers, so that was, like I'm saying, part of the budget process was Mike bringing forward.
but I think our goal, even when we went to BLS, is that eventually we were moving to ALS. And that was always in the process of how we were going to get there, and I think that we had made that commitment to this fire department, that that's what we wanted to do. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming from, that we had,
Sure,
had
yeah,
done
just a
that,
question of
so-
what it's gonna, don't you agree that townspeople are gonna wanna know what it's gonna cost?
I think they will.
Mhm.
I think they will.
But I think
That's
they're,
what we're moving
what
towards.
we've always brought forward though is what an acceptable level of service is too.
Right.
Because we're talking about firefighters and they're doing one job, you know what I mean? So
this
if we're
is-
not staffing the ambulance,
Mhm.
we're also not staffing the fire department.
Yeah. and
So
then
that's why we have to find that balance. And again, we also have to take a look at what we're bringing in for revenues that would offset that cost. So again, I've always said this, and I just want to, I'll say it one more time, that I personally don't feel that public safety should be, your police, your fire, dispatch. It shouldn't be, it's great to have revenue coming in to support it, but we have a job to go out there and provide quick response to fires, to emergency medical calls. So in my opinion, as a resident as well, who's used the service, I find that
Me as well.
that's critical, that I just sometimes, and I get it, I understand that there's concerns about taxes going up and, you know, having to find that revenue. It's, since I've started, the fire department has always been, well, what are you gonna bring in for revenues? You know, how are you gonna offset the costs? And I feel that it should be a little bit different of a percentage, that we should be more of, let's have the best ALS fire department we can provide here. We have a great team of folks that are committed to the town, they like coming to work. Let's not go down the road of starting to lose folks, because I can tell you that, you know, morale is a little bit low right now. People are afraid that and I know you guys have committed to not doing furloughs or layoffs, but folks are nervous, you know, and,
Yeah, no, I just want to
So.
reiterate that too, and I'm glad you brought that up, because from a staffing standpoint, we're not, I say we, select board, the finance committee, because obviously we've had a lot of discussion about this. Nobody has any, I don't think there's a thought in anybody's head about going backwards from a staffing standpoint, right? I mean, everybody's really committed to making sure that the staffing that we have today stays. Again, ultimately, it will be up to, you know, the voters, you know, when it finally gets to a special town meeting. I think the question is, how much additional staffing, right? So in order to go fully ALS, it's not just the staff we have today, and we don't have quite enough money right now in order to add that many additional bodies to do the 24/7 coverage we're talking about. That's what's in discussion right now. I think we need to figure out.
But as they said, though, you're not gonna start off at 24/7, you're going to work into 24/7. You're going to be working ALS when you start with 8 and then go on and then move forward. So you're not just plugging in for 24/7 right away.
Which is why we need a plan.
There's a reason why all of the departments between the mid-80s and now in Massachusetts have gone to ALS. Because it pays the bills. And you can't, we can put paramedics on and have a third party or second contracted ambulance doing the calls. They're getting the money for what could be paying for our people to do the job.
Right, but they're also, well, this is a discussion that, you know, goes deeper, because you want to compare apples to apples, and their cost structure is so different from ours. That's why we want to make sure that, and to Bill's question, is it a goal? Sure, but it all has to work, and right now I think there were enough unknown variables, and we need a capital plan, right?
Yep.
And the staffing plan, and again, as we keep saying, it's a multi-year strategy, Mike, right?
Well, it's been a multi-year strategy,
Yeah.
so we've been, you know, it's been a phased-in approach. And again, I also like to say that Mike doesn't have firefighters on his ambulance. So again, I just want to make sure that everybody understands when we're talking about this budget for the fire and EMS, because we split money between those two budgets.
Yeah.
That's firefighter EMTs, that's not just EMTs or just firefighters. So when we have this discussion, the tough conversations about how we're gonna come up with the funding or if we're gonna fund it, folks need to realize that with that budget not being funded right now, that's half of our firefighters.
Right,
So
and that's why we want to make sure.
So that's why we wanna make sure
we
that,
preserve that.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think if
so-
you look at the surrounding towns and people that I know between Amherst and East Hampton, Northampton, they're firefighter paramedics. They're not separated, they're the same. So
You
I
also have to
mean,
look at
It's a smart way to do it.
yeah,
call volume comes into play. So again,
There's a
apples
lot
to
to look-
apples,
lot
not
to
apples
look
to
at.
oranges.
not to
Yeah.
look at.
Right, because, you know, 4,000 calls begets a different number than 1,200 calls.
Right.
So.
But
so
it
we
still
gotta-
needs to be our goal. For the end game, the goal for the end game, depending on discussion, it still needs to be our goal to complete the process. And to institute ALS ambulance service in the fire department.
Well, I mean, we're pretty,
We're doing it.
We're-
We're doing it.
we're
It's
doing
just
That's what's happening.
Again,
The, the commitment. It's
right, the question, Bill, is whether or not it's 100% or whether it's hybrid, if I can put it that way, the way that we're working right now with action.
And what the plan is that we can present basically at town meeting 2 in the fall. You know, and how we can justify whether it be with 8-hour shift with 5 7 firefighters, paramedics on board at the same time and covering those shifts, whatever we have now. What do we have now?
We have 2 firefighters plus myself and the deputy. So when I presented that document, I was asked to do 3 potential tracks. So 7 is the optimum if you had that. You know, you'd have 2 dedicated to a fire truck, 2 dedicated to the ambulance. The addition of 3 staffing would allow us to run an ambulance or a fire truck with an additional person at the station to do whatever's next. So if the ambulance goes out the door, there's still 1 firefighter in the station that could respond to a fire call. You know, we have a union contract now, so if both vehicles are out, there's callback, there's processes, there's the call force that we still rely on, that is still a big part of this, and, you know, we'll cover shifts if it gets down to them as well. We did have a line item for per diem staffing, as we had talked about how we could fill in some of the shifts with per diems as well, and so that was in that plan. So yeah, I think we have a really good document with some tracks available. It's just, again, I think it's a nice big discussion with the town. I think the town needs to make that decision, and I'm mandated to report to the select board every year. So every year it's in our town report that I'm expressing my concerns to you, that I think we need to have the staff. We have to support, OSHA mandates 2 in, 2 out. That's hard to cover sometimes. At 2 o'clock in the morning when you have a structure fire, you don't want to have to wait for, mutual aid or for call force people to be able to get there in time. And technically, these guys aren't supposed to go into a building without that backup there. So if they're there in 4 minutes, technically, they're taking that risk, and I don't like that. That's why my pager never shuts off.
It's not like the old days, that's
Yeah.
for damn sure. People did.
So that's just some of the questions and the concerns that, I think we've put out a good product on information, and hopefully we can just keep presenting it more and see what people think.
Yeah, and I think on the select board agenda Wednesday, where some of this discussion will come up, right? Because I think we have the contract on the agenda too, so.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you that, because I know Mike put it on based upon our meeting tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, should we allow a little digest time and move it to the next one, or do you want to have the conversation, because it was specific to the contract, or do you think that's enough time for you guys? Is it enough time for you for before
I think we
Wednesday?
turn around quickly.
So,
Yeah.
you okay? You're all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that everybody had enough time to look at it and
Sure.
feel comfortable.
Yep, and Randy's the chair, up to him.
It is Randy? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so we'll put out an email then from everybody if they, normally we have a vote of the oversight committee to the select board saying they support the contract, so maybe we could just do that by email once we get comments back. Does
Yeah,
that
once we get.
make sense? Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I think if we could have more regular meetings here too, once in a while, especially, we're gonna be talking more about the override that we're looking at.
Yep.
And then, if that does not work out to what we hope it will, then we need to talk about other creative things, solutions, and this will be a big discussion.
So how frequently,
It's not like I'm looking for too regularly, but I'm saying it's too long of a stretch.
I think the
So I
contract
think-
requires quarterly, I believe, but
yeah,
we can
quarterly,
do,
it's,
that's just for the contract for us to meet with action.
Okay.
but we may, I think to Amy's point, we may need to be
Sure.
nimble,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And also when these conversations are taking place at Select Board and Finance Committee about the budgetary constraints, I know some people log in and, watch the meetings anyway, but I could try to make sure that when they're specific to fire and ambulance, again, the purview of this committee is ambulance, but like
Same
Mike said, you
picture.
you
Same
can't
thing.
ignore
Same
one
house.
without the other, so we'll try to make sure that you're aware, so you can at least log in and watch the meeting or attend or whatever.
And then I think they're doing the updated appointment list. There's no changes. Everything will remain the same for the list of folks. Unless, is anybody bailing on us?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna email everybody, but every year we go through this internal process where if you're on a sitting committee, some committees are more formal where people have terms and they roll off. For a lot of the committees, they're more kind of, you're on it, and, you know.
You die.
Tag you
So-
That's a positive outlook.
Well, I ain't getting any younger, I'll tell you that.
This is the place to do it.
Yeah, so can I just, since everybody's here tonight, can I just take a quick?
Get you to the hospital quick, maybe.
Okay, Walter, you wanna stay?
Yes, ma'am.
Ready? Bill?
Yes.
And Sue?
40
Yeah,
something.
okay, yeah, so I'll submit that accordingly. Thank you.
Joyce's thing too. Joyce's thing too, right?
Yeah. I said, do I get a lifetime guarantee with this hit?
Technically, that would fall under the category of items seen or unforeseen because that email request just came in after this meeting was posted too, so thanks for bringing that up.
I'm sorry. Actually, yeah, it was emailed out to everybody, right? I think that was on the committee, or the request to make sure that we had all the right people on the
I thought
committee.
it only went to the chairs, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it did? I saw it, so that's why I was
Yeah.
part of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have to get sworn in again?
Yep,
Yes.
yep. When the time comes.
I think they're approving it, they're reviewing it tomorrow night, or Wednesday, right? That thing?
I don't
I
think
think-
so because she
No,
just
they
said
normally
that.
do it after
Me if I
July
swear,
1st.
right?
Just got
Sure.
sworn in the other
Yeah.
day.
I thought that they had something on that. for-
Oh, maybe.
Board of Assessors. His wife literally swore at me and said, "Really? I just got back from lunch."
That sounds about right.
It's time to see it.
Welcome to my world.
That's a good word.
All right.
It is.
Yeah.
Make a motion?
Is that it?
Any new business?
No, I can't make the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.